The Coalition of Enlightened Worlds, a collective of advanced alien species, had summoned humanity to their opulent space station, a glittering nexus of power and diplomacy suspended in the void. Humanity, the newcomers to the galactic stage, was both a curiosity and a source of unease. The Coalition referred to humans with a mix of disdain and caution. Deathworlders, creatures forged in the crucible of a violent, unstable planet. Their rise to interstellar travel was swift and unexpected, and many in the Coalition saw them as little more than primitive survivors clawing their way into relevance. The human delegation entered the council chamber, their movements deliberate, their expressions composed. At their head was Captain Elias Ward, a man of sharp eyes and a calm demeanor that belied the storms he had weathered. His uniform, though modest compared to the ornate garb of the alien ambassadors, carried a weight of authority. Behind him, his team followed silently, their presence a stark contrast to the ostentatious alien entourage. Ambassador Tverik of the Erythran Ascendancy, a tall, silver-hued being with elongated features, greeted them with measured formality. Tverik was known for pragmatism, but even they regarded the humans with thinly veiled skepticism. Captain Ward, Tverik began, their voice a melodic hum. Your species has shown remarkable determination in reaching this point. However, determination alone may not suffice in the trials that lie ahead. Beside Tverik stood General Klax, a hulking figure covered in chitinous plates, whose mandibles clicked audibly in disdain. Deathworlders, Klax sneered. Survivors, yes. Civilized? Hardly. We've seen your wars, your internal chaos. How do you propose to offer anything but disorder to our alliance? Ward met their gaze unflinching. Humanity has learned to thrive in adversity. We're here to contribute, not to disrupt. His voice carried no trace of defensiveness, only quiet confidence. The chamber itself was a marvel of design, a blend of alien aesthetics, with shifting lights and organic patterns on the walls. Yet, despite its grandeur, it felt cold to the humans, a stark reminder of their precarious position. The Coalition saw them as unpredictable anomalies rather than equals. The meeting pressed on, with pointed questions from the alien leaders and measured responses from Ward. The Deathworld label was repeatedly invoked, each time tinged with derision. Humanity's past was paraded as evidence of their unfitness. The endless wars, the environmental catastrophes, the near-constant brinkmanship. Through it all, Ward remained composed. But his silence spoke volumes. Humanity's scars were badges of survival, each one a testament to their unyielding spirit. Ward's restraint in the face of ridicule wasn't weakness. It was calculation. Beneath his calm exterior lay the truth. They weren't here to prove themselves. They didn't need to. The discussion shifted when Tverik addressed a larger threat. A holographic display filled the chamber, showing images of devastation. A planet reduced to ash, ships torn apart, and alien colonies consumed. The Scarian Swarm, a relentless empire of hive-mind predators, had begun an expansion campaign that threatened the Coalition's borders. Their biological weaponry and sheer numbers had already annihilated several advanced civilizations. Tverik's tone grew somber. The Swarm doesn't negotiate. It doesn't relent. We've called upon your species to assess whether you might aid in the defense of the galaxy. General Klax interjected, his voice laced with skepticism. Aid? More likely cannon fodder. Deathworlders might fare better as shock troops than strategists. Ward leaned forward slightly, his expression unchanged. Humanity has faced swarms before. Smaller, yes. But the principle remains the same. Adapt, endure, and overcome. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily. The humans, for all their perceived savagery, carried with them an aura of unshakable certainty. Yet, Klax's mandibles clicked again in irritation, and murmurs rippled through the alien delegates. Before the conversation could continue, a sharp, urgent tone filled the chamber. Emergency lights flickered as a transmission was patched through. A CW officer's panicked voice echoed across the room. "This is an emergency alert. Scarian forces have launched a surprise assault on Colony Cluster 14. Casualties are already in the thousands. We require immediate assistance." The alien diplomats erupted into chaos, their composed facades shattered by the reality of imminent danger. Tverik's calm demeanor faltered as they scrambled to organize a response. Amid the confusion, Ward stood, his team exchanging silent glances. While the aliens floundered, the humans exhibited an eerie calm. It wasn't indifference. It was the quiet determination of a species that had faced extinction too many times to count. Ward's voice cut through the noise, steady and commanding. "We'll help." The alien leaders turned to him, some in disbelief, others in reluctant hope. Ward's tone hardened, the first hint of steel in his demeanor. "But don't mistake our cooperation for weakness. You're about to see why we're called Deathworlders." The Scarian swarm descended upon Colony Cluster 14 with the precision and inevitability of a natural disaster. They were not a conventional enemy, but a biological force of nature, an endless tide of insectoid creatures working in perfect unison. Their ships, organic and grotesque, moved like living organisms, weaving through space with an eerie grace. They had no need for strategy as the galaxy understood it. Overwhelming numbers and relentless aggression were their weapons of choice. Advanced biological weaponry turned their assaults into spectacles of horror. Corrosive acid storms, parasitic drones, and warships that devoured debris to repair themselves. The CW fleet scrambled to respond, but their efforts were fragmented and chaotic. Different species operated with their own protocols, their ships designed more for deterrence than sustained combat. Communications clogged as captains argued over strategies, their inexperience with total war glaringly evident. Scarian forces exploited every gap, tearing through defensive lines with brutal efficiency. Colonies burned, and the coalition's famed enlightenment faltered in the face of raw survival. Amid this chaos, humanity acted. Captain Ward, watching the coalition's disarray, stepped forward. His voice cut through the rising panic like a blade. "If you don't organize, you'll lose the entire sector. Listen carefully." He began issuing orders, his tone calm but firm, assigning roles to coalition ships and prioritizing key choke points. The alien commanders balked at first, but as their ships fell in line, a semblance of order emerged. The Resolute, humanity's flagship, was a stark contrast to the CW vessels. Where the alien ships were sleek and elegant, the Resolute was a fortress of practicality. Reinforced armor, redundant systems, and a design that prioritized function over aesthetics. It was built not to intimidate, but to endure. Its presence was the first real shock to the coalition. When Ward's strategy required a fleet to bait the Scarian into a trap, a CW officer hesitated. "We can't risk such losses," they protested. The Resolute's commander, a grizzled veteran named Colonel Graves, stepped in. His expression was grim, his tone colder than the vacuum outside. "This isn't our first swarm," he said, the weight of countless battles behind his words. The aliens fell silent. The humans moved with precision, deploying a mix of tactics that bewildered their allies. Guerrilla strikes on smaller Scarian clusters disrupted their advance. Surgical orbital bombardments targeted key biological nodes in the swarm, exploiting their hive mind coordination. EMP bursts disabled the Scarians' organic weaponry, leaving them vulnerable to follow-up assaults. Where the CW relied on predictability, humanity thrived in chaos. On the ground, human soldiers fought like their lives depended on every action because they did. Where CW infantry relied on advanced shielding and automated drones, humans adapted to the situation with brutal efficiency. Flame weapons neutralized Scarian drones, and kinetic strikes shattered their carapaces. Tactics evolved in real time, soldiers coordinating with an unspoken understanding born from centuries of war. The Skarian, for all their ferocity, began to falter against this unpredictable enemy. The humans' adaptability was matched only by their sheer willpower. Coalition officers, watching from command decks, were struck by the stark difference between their approach and humanity's. Aliens trained for precision and detachment, but humans fought like it was personal. The battlefield was a spectacle of destruction. Skarian ships fell in great numbers, their organic hulls burning as the Resolute unleashed devastating salvos. Coalition ships that followed humanity's lead managed to hold their lines, but those that faltered were quickly overwhelmed. A veteran CW captain, watching the humans fight, murmured in disbelief, "They're relentless. How do they keep going?" When the battle finally subsided, the cost was evident. The CW fleets were battered, many ships irreparably damaged, and their officers were shaken to their cores. Casualty reports filled the command channels, a grim reminder of the price paid for survival. Yet, against all odds, humanity stood with fewer losses than anyone had predicted. Ward, weary but composed, addressed the coalition leaders. "You underestimated us. That was your first mistake. Don't make it again." His words were not a boast, but a simple truth. General Clax, who had mocked humanity earlier, approached Ward with uncharacteristic restraint. His mandibles clicked softly, a sign of grudging respect. "Your kind is effective," he admitted, though the words seemed to pain him. Ward's response was measured, his voice carrying no malice. "We're survivors, General. That's what we do." When the battle at Colony Cluster 14 ended, grim news emerged. Skarian forces had taken hundreds of human colonists alive, dragging them into the depths of their bioships. The purpose was horrifyingly clear. The swarm would assimilate the captives, transforming them into grotesque hybrids to serve their hive. The coalition leaders, shaken and weary, debated their options, but most agreed on one thing: a rescue mission was impossible. Captain Ward stood as the argument raged. "We're not leaving them," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The aliens turned to him in disbelief. General Clax's mandibles clicked in derision. "You would risk more lives for a futile effort? This is why Deathworlders are reckless." Ward's expression hardened. "It's not recklessness, it's survival. We protect our own. That's why we'll win." Without waiting for approval, he gathered a strike team of volunteers, each fully aware of the risks. Their target, a massive Skarian bioship on the edge of the battle zone. CW leaders watched as the human vessel departed, their silence speaking volumes about the mission's perceived futility. The Skarian bioship loomed like a living nightmare, its surface pulsating with an alien rhythm. As the team breached its hull, they were met with an environment that defied comprehension. The walls pulsed with a sickly glow, secreting fluids that pooled beneath their boots. The air was thick and humid, laced with a faint acidic tang that burned the lungs. Every surface seemed alive, shifting and reacting to their presence. The team moved cautiously, their advanced tech scanning the bioship's interior. Drones mapped the twisting corridors, while flamethrowers incinerated hostile organisms, attempting to ambush them. In the face of the swarm's overwhelming biology, humans relied on ingenuity. Low-tech tools, blades, incendiaries, and explosives proved just as vital as their advanced weaponry. At one point, the team encountered a pulsating membrane blocking their path. Instead of using brute force, they analyzed its structure, finding a weak point. A soldier joked grimly, "It's like popping a blister," before slicing through. Beyond, they found what they were looking for: the stasis chambers. Rows upon rows of transparent pods lined the chamber, each holding a human colonist in suspended animation. The team worked quickly, overriding the organic mechanisms holding the captives in place. But the swarm was not idle. As the first colonist was freed, an ear-piercing shriek echoed through the chamber. Skarian warriors poured in, their grotesque forms a blur of chitin and claws. The fight was savage and immediate. Flamethrowers roared to life, filling the air with the acrid smell of burning flesh. Blades clashed against claws as soldiers fought in brutal melee combat, their movements fueled by adrenaline and desperation. One soldier, a veteran named Harris, held the line with a heavy weapon, cutting down advancing Scarian to buy time for the others. A Scarian drone lunged at Harris, and he tackled it to the ground, pinning it long enough to detonate a grenade. The explosion sent fragments of alien carapace flying, but it also cost him his life. The team didn't falter. His sacrifice only fueled their resolve. The final colonist was freed as more Scarian reinforcements closed in. Ward ordered the team to fall back, their retreat chaotic yet controlled. They moved with the precision of soldiers who had trained for the worst and survived it. Reaching their extraction point, they detonated charges behind them, collapsing the chamber and halting the swarm's pursuit. As the human vessel sped away from the bioship, the team began assessing the rescued colonists. Relief was tempered by grim news. Intercepted Scarian signals revealed a fleet amassing near their core systems. The swarm was not retreating, it was preparing for a direct assault on Earth. Ward's jaw tightened as he delivered the report to the coalition. "The fight isn't over," he said, his voice steady. "It's only just begun." Earth stood on the brink of annihilation. As news of the Scarian fleet's impending arrival spread, humanity responded with a unity that astonished even the most skeptical CEW observers. Nations set aside their differences, pooling resources and expertise in a global effort to defend their homeworld. Factories that once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons and armor. Civilians volunteered in droves, from engineers designing last-minute defenses to medics preparing for the wounded. Humanity's resolve was palpable, a mixture of grim determination and defiance. The coalition watched from orbit, their fleets bolstered by reinforcements but still outnumbered. Despite their earlier doubts, they now relied on humanity's leadership. Captain Ward coordinated the planetary defenses, his orders a blend of strategic genius and calculated risk. "We don't just fight for Earth," he said during a broadcast to inspire the defenders. "We fight for everyone who's ever doubted us, and everyone who never gave up on us." When the Scarian fleet arrived, the sight was apocalyptic. Their ships blotted out the stars, an endless swarm of organic constructs that radiated menace. The initial wave descended with terrifying speed, but humanity was ready. Orbital minefields detonated in carefully timed patterns, carving through the first ranks of the invaders. Kamikaze drones, piloted by AI or volunteers, slammed into critical Scarian nodes, their explosions tearing massive bioships apart. The battle was a cacophony of destruction. On the ground, missile systems launched relentless barrages, while aerial squadrons engaged smaller Scarian crafts. In orbit, human and CW fleets fought in tandem, though it was humanity's unconventional tactics that made the difference. Engineers had discovered that broadcasting disruptive frequencies into the Scarian hive mind caused chaos among their ranks. Ships began emitting the signals, and the once coordinated swarm hesitated, their movements faltering. Amid the chaos, individual acts of heroism shone. A ground unit, trapped behind enemy lines, fought tooth and nail to hold a key choke point. On board the Resolute, a young officer rerouted power from life support systems to weaponry, knowing full well the risk to the crew. Stories of sacrifice and determination echoed across the battlefield, embodying the indomitable spirit of humanity. The tide of battle turned during a desperate gambit. Engineers had outfitted a captured Scarian bioship with a massive payload of explosives. The plan was audacious: infiltrate the heart of the Scarian fleet and detonate the ship, severing the hive mind's connection. The Resolute spearheaded the mission, escorted by a squadron of heavily armed fighters. As the ship plunged into the enemy ranks, the swarm reacted with ferocity, throwing everything at the human fleet to stop it. Defenders fought to the last, buying precious seconds. Finally, the bioship reached its target. The explosives detonated in a blinding flash, the shockwave rippling across the void. The effect was immediate and devastating. Without the hive mind's coordination, the Scarian fleet fell into disarray. Ships collided, drones malfunctioned, and their relentless advance halted. Humanity seized the opportunity, rallying for a final counterattack. What remained of the swarm fled, their once mighty fleet reduced to ruins. When the battle ended, silence fell over Earth's defenders. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. The cost was immense. Ships destroyed, cities scarred, countless lives lost. But humanity had endured. The CW leaders, watching the aftermath, were left speechless. General Clax approached Ward, his tone no longer laced with disdain. "Your kind is formidable," he admitted, mandibles clicking softly. Ward, battered but unbroken, simply nodded. "We survive. That's what we do." The coalition had witnessed not just humanity's strength, but their unity, ingenuity, and will to protect what mattered most. They no longer doubted why humanity was called Deathworlders. It wasn't because of their planet, it was because of what they could become when pushed to the brink. Victory came at a price. Captain Ward stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, staring down at Earth. The planet, though intact, bore the scars of the Scarian invasion. Entire cities were in ruins, their glowing embers visible even from orbit. Casualty reports flooded his terminal, millions dead, countless more injured or displaced. Humanity had prevailed, but the cost was staggering. Memorials began almost immediately. Across the world, people gathered to mourn. In the ruins of New Berlin, survivors lit candles among the rubble. In a small town in East Asia, children placed flowers at the feet of statues hastily erected to honor fallen soldiers. The pain was palpable, but so was the resilience. Ward knew this was humanity at its core, capable of unimaginable destruction, yet also profound compassion. The coalition of enlightened worlds convened aboard a neutral station, the weight of what they had witnessed hanging over the proceedings. General Clax, still struggling to reconcile his disdain with his respect, spoke first. "Humanity is an anomaly, dangerous, but necessary." Ambassador Tverek's tone was more contemplative. Perhaps their world made them this way. Or perhaps they always were. The room fell silent as her words lingered. For the CW, humanity represented something entirely new, a species capable of both unparalleled savagery and the kind of unity that most civilizations only dreamed of. The debate raged for hours. Some argued that humanity's capacity for violence made them too great a risk, even as allies. Others insisted that humanity was precisely what the galaxy needed, a counterbalance to forces like the Scarian swarm. As the council adjourned, one conclusion was clear. The galaxy would never view Deathworlders the same way again. On Earth, the survivors of the war turned their focus outward. Humanity had no intention of waiting for the next threat to arrive. Factories shifted from producing weapons to building fleets. Diplomatic channels buzzed with new alliances, some wary, others eager to align with the species that had stood against the swarm and won. A message was sent to every corner of the galaxy, broadcast from humanity's capital. "This is Earth. To those who seek peace, we extend our hand. To those who seek to harm us, know this: we were forged in fire. We value peace, but we will fight with everything we have to protect our own. Push us, and we will remind you why Deathworlders endure." The words resonated across the stars. Some viewed the message as a declaration of defiance. Others saw it as a beacon of hope. For humanity, it was simply the truth. Ward stood once more at the observation deck, this time joined by Ambassador Tverek. She broke the silence, her voice soft. "Your people have changed the galaxy, Captain. But at what cost?" Ward's gaze remained fixed on Earth. "The cost is high," But survival always is. And we're not just surviving, we're thriving. That's what Deathworlders do. As the Resolute drifted away, the camera of the galaxy's collective attention pulled back, revealing Earth, a battered yet defiant blue jewel. Its scars a testament to the fire it had endured and the strength it had forged. Humanity had not just survived. It had proven why Deathworlders, against all odds, never give up.